Hi guys, my name is Mahnoor Barry. I'm a 2D and 3D artist and a motion designer. First, I want to say thank you to Matthias and the Maxon team out there for having me and letting me be part of this event. Also, I really hope that things go back to normal, like pre-COVID life, so that we all can meet up in person and go on to those amazing shows that Maxon used to host. Okay, so let me tell you guys a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Mahnoor and I'm originally from Pakistan. I moved down to States about 6 years ago. When I moved down, I started my college right away and I started at Art Institute at Fort Lauderdale, and then I transferred to Lynn University. I first started my college in major of graphic design. But then while I was doing it in my first semester, I was like, okay, I need to do something a little bit more magical, something more like movements involved and everything in my head. I was like, at that time, I didn't really knew about motion graphics. So I did a little bit about my research on it, and then I found out about motion graphics, and then I found out about Cinema 4D. So I was like, wait, that's it. That's exactly what I was looking for. And I absolutely fell in love with the interface, and I love doing those animations, and I love playing with the cameras, and then how you can play around with the lights, and then just from the straight render of physical or standard render in Cinema 4D, how amazing render can come out of it. And also, 3 years ago, when I first met Matthias, he came down to Miami for a 3D motion tour. And I remember telling him that how I enjoy and love doing graphics for sports. So then later down in the year, he invited me to be part of this IDEA conference, which was in San Diego. So I went there, and there I met some pretty cool artists and companies. And I remember I also met Andrew Kramer there for the first time. I was all thrilled to meet him, of course. Then when Matthias came back to Miami for a 3D motion tour in 2019, that's where I met EJ, Blake, and Andrew Kramer again. And I just loved the whole community and absolutely loved doing what I was doing. And also I graduated from my college last month with my bachelor's in computer animation and motion graphics. So let me show you my reel now. And actually, those are a few of the projects that I'll be covering up today, telling you some tips about how you can just use simple, straight, standard, or physical render, and your renders would come out, how your renders can come out some good quality. So check it out.
Calling me, they'll be calling me royalty. Best to give me loyalty, 'cause I'm taking the world, you'll see. They'll be calling me, they'll be calling me royalty. 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 They'll be calling me royalty.
So this is one of the projects that I'll be covering up today. I'll show you some cool tips on how to do some cool renders straight from standard or physical. And I'll show you how I did these background neon lights, because I know that some of the few beginners on my Instagram questioned me like how you did those. Did you use like any redshift or something? And I was like, no, I use straight basic lighting in Cinema 4D. So I'll cover up on that, and then I'll show you how I rendered these out as well. And this was one of my personal projects that I did. I was inspired by Mercedes AMG, so I did an AMG, and I wanted to do some like cool rims, and then the wheel. So I designed it, and I was like, okay, let's just do it something cool. Okay, so let's dive into Cinema 4D, and I'll show you how I did it. Also, before starting with any of my projects, I of course do the storyboarding first. In my head, I have a vision that how the first shot's gonna look like, and then how the second shot's gonna look like, what's gonna be the transition between them, what's the third shot's gonna look like. Of course, I storyboard them, either illustrate them on Photoshop or I draw them, so that I have like an idea of what I'm gonna be working on, you know. I feel like that's something like really important, even if it's some personal project or anything, if you're doing some client-based work. So when I'm working on those shots, the first thing that I think of as well is like what's going to be the transition between them, so that it looks like smooth, you know, while you're like playing the video, and then it should look like smooth how it's gonna go from first shot to the second shot, like how the transition is gonna look like. So that's something very important. But of course, that comes in like transitions comes in between like when you're working on After Effects, but then those are some important things that you need to think of, so that it has a good flow in your video. And I feel like those are very important because it keeps the audience keep going, keep looking, like it makes the video more interesting. So transitions play a really big role in all of my work. I'm like big onto that. Okay, so finally now let's dive into cinema. I also wanted to point out something before I go ahead and show you guys. I wanted to point out that when I'm rendering stuff, I make sure sometimes that I separate my foreground separately. If it's like a product or something, I would render this separately, and then the background separately too, because what it gives me more options of like if I want to play around more with like brightness, contrast, saturation, curves, or anything with the foreground with my product itself, I'll have more choice of how I can change, like how I can play around with the background and with the foreground. So I'll have like more control in my hands, because I know that when I was working on this project, I had this vision in my mind that, okay, well, I'm going to separate the foreground and background, and then I'm going to add like text in between them, so that in After Effects, I would easily be able to add this text layer in between, you know. And then I know that I play around a little bit with like saturation in the background, so that I'm not affecting the foreground itself. So I know that these lights, I rendered them out separately for a couple of shots, like for this one especially, and then for this shot I didn't. It was always like separate with the foreground and the background, but so that I can play around with them more. Same goes with like this shot too. Like it was all separate, so that I can play more with a depth of field as well. And then for this first shot too, I played around with depth of field so that I can blur out all this in After Effects, and I'll have like more control over these both foreground and the background. Okay, so now let me show you how I did those neon lights in cinema. It's something really, really, really simple, so I'm not gonna go in details much right here because of it was just simple plain, and then I cloned it. So like those were the two things at first, and then I created a cube right here, and then put like one light in there so that it will darken it up. So the main thing I would say right here was, of course, the light. It was with luminance, and then added the color and the reflectance in it. The default specular didn't do much, just left the default. But also the main thing that I would say in this whole render was when you go to the render settings, I did with physical. But what was the main important things were these three things: object glow, global illumination, and ambient occlusion. So you can get access to all these three things by going to the effect right here. Since I already have them right here, so it's not showing in these options right here, but if you go to the physical or maybe like even standard, like you'll see them when you go to the effect right here. So it's something really for the beginners that they're not aware of, that like these little things can make a huge difference when you're rendering out your project. So I'll show you the difference, what it's gonna look before applying any of these things, and then after applying these things too. So let me show you before what's gonna look like. So let me just go right here and then hit Shift R and then see how flat it is looking right now. Like super flat, no glow, I mean it's neon, but like no glow or anything, no ambient occlusion, anything on it. Now if I go back to the render settings and turn on these things, object glow, global illumination, and ambient occlusion right here, so now you're gonna see the difference. It's gonna take a second. Of course, the render time would increase a little bit, but you're gonna see the difference between like how like it's not looking flat at all. Like it's actually giving glow and global illumination and ambient occlusion right here. So if you see the difference between the first one and then the second one right here, like how different they both are. So this is something like a little tip that can help you out when you're doing renders, and you go to the render settings right here using the physical render. You just add these three effects, and how like it's gonna create a big difference in your render. So this is basically how I created these neon lights. Now let me go on to the next thing. Okay, so now another tip that I want to give you is like when you have like project that you're working on and then you feel like your model is pretty heavy, and the materials that you're using on your model is like pretty heavy too. So something that helped me out a lot is when you'll go to these options and you just turn off this material tag. So when you turn off this material tag, like it will make it run much faster, like it will be much smoother if you don't have like a built-in like a heavy machine or something. So this thing will help you out a lot. Also, by turning off the material, sometimes it helps me a lot when I'm doing my lighting in the end, because it shows me better that where actually the lighting is hitting the most, and then what part is that needs a little bit more lighting, like what part needs a little bit more love. So when I turn off this option for the material, so it shows me better, you know, like on my model where it needs more lighting or anything. So like, for example, right now I see this part of the model needs a little bit more lighting. So I can easily just go and light up this area. So another thing with the lighting that I wanna tell you about is, this is something really simple. I actually found out about this like a year ago maybe, and I find it super helpful. Is when you go to this, okay, let me bring in any light first, and then the light's right there at the 0 axis. But now when you go to the lighting and then you choose this lighting tool, this is super helpful. Like you have your model right here, and then you have your light click, and then you have your lighting tool selected. And so when your cursor looks like this, like as a plus sign, like it knows that it's your lighting tool is on, and then it's pointing. Now it's pointing out at your model. So when you move it around, like you click on the screen and then you move it around your model, it will show like exactly where the light has to, like where the light is pointing. So this tool is super helpful and handy. Like, I use this a lot when I'm doing this product lighting or anything. So it's super useful. Like, you just click it and you drag it around your model, and then boom, there you go. Like, super easy to light up your model. And then, like, just go back to this, and then, sorry, I created another light. Let me just delete that. And then you go back to the options, and you turn your material tag on back again. Right here. So these few tips, and of course, yeah, like, it's super helpful, like super handy. And for this specific scene, I did a physical render, and I had the ambient occlusion on. I didn't really need the global illumination on this thing because I had like no those lighting or anything, because I rendered those separately again, and I would render this separately again. So I just use it like straight physical, and then I did ambient occlusion, and yeah, that's it. So now I'm gonna go ahead on my next project that I want to show, that I did a little bit more standard and physical both involved in it in the next project, and yeah, I hope it will help you out more. So the second project that I'll be showing you guys is this my shoe commercial. I started off this project a little bit. The first scene is a little bit like, starts off mysteriously, like there's fog involved, and then it's all dark, and then the light turns on, and then it pans into the shoe, and the shoe goes up a little bit up, like higher, and then the transition goes into the second shot of then the shoe comes in, like pans in. For this shot, pretty much, like, of course, the whole shoe was done in cinema, and then everything else was done in After Effects. So when I'm rendering these out, of course, I storyboarded everything in my head before. So when I go to the cinema, and I'm rendering out in the render settings, I make sure that in the save option, my alpha channel is on, so that the background is like, I can easily take my render into the After Effects and do all the After Effects stuff in there, playing around with the colors and the text and everything, and I easily have an option of like empty background, and I can do whatever I want. So for this scene, I did a standard render, and then I did the ambient occlusion. I added the ambient occlusion to it. So for this whole scene, the whole animation was done right here. I wanted to bring it in, and then like it moves around a little bit, and it turns around and shows the whole shoe, and then it turns around and then shows the back of the shoe and goes outside of the scene. And again, like, if you would notice, while I'm doing animation on my models, I usually make sure to turn off my material so that my machine runs a little bit faster. It's not loading any materials or anything, and it's easy to do the animation while the material option is off. And then I can light it easily too. And also another thing that I wanted to mention is when I'm doing my lighting setup, I always add like this like HDRIs to my scenes as well. And then for that, what I do is like I go right here sorry, I created the floor right here. Let me just delete that. I go right here and then go to the sky, and I would create like a new material right here, and then would go to luminance, and then turn off the color and reflectance, and then in the luminance, either I would go to like find HDRIs online, or I would even go to like content browser. If you just want something straight from cinema, then you go to the content browser of cinema right here. You search HDRIs, and then there's like few of the HDRIs that are available right here too. So you just grab this, and then you put it into the texture, And okay, then you drop this material right here to the sky, and then you do the compositing tag. You go here and then you do the right click. Well, you don't see it right here because my material is off right now. So you do the right click to it and turn off from the render text compositing, and then you turn it off seen by camera so that it's not seen by your camera like the sky. And you get the alpha background at the back of your shoe. So these are the little things, and then when you create that, it gives a little bit of like in the edges, it would give a little bit of reflection, and like it would pop out a little bit more. It would get the reflectance, so it will give a little bit better lighting to it. These little things would create like a big difference on your render. Just like how when you're creating a text in Cinema and then you extrude it out and then you bevel it, so that bevel gives a little bit like, that lighting in the corner that you'll be like that would pop out your model. So just like that, if you create these little things, you add the sky and then you put the HDRs in there, so it would give a reflection that is needed in your model. So going on to the third shot, right here, it's moving around, and then here, I created these stitches, texture, like, the effect that's going around, and then it goes right here. For all of that, I did it, I used the, MoGraphs right here, and use the linear field around it, and then animated it so that it will go. It will seem like the stitch is like going around, and it's like right there. Let me turn on the materials as well so that you'll see the whole thing. So the linear field. Let me turn this back on. It was off. So right here, so when you go, and then the linear field is coming in and showing the whole stitch going around. So another thing that I found out while I was doing this project, there's this plugin called Quick Stitch, and it's actually free. So what it does is, like with your spline, you just add the quick stitch effect to it, and then it will easily create the stitch to your spline. So it's pretty simple and pretty cool plugin that can help you out if you're doing anything with like clothing, or like even if it's a shirt, shoe, or anything that includes like stitch in it. It's a pretty cool plugin that can help you out, and it's actually like free. So yeah, do definitely check it out. For this specific scene as well, I did standard and I added the ambient occlusion, and also I rendered it out with like alpha channel in it with it, so that if I need to enter anything, like add anything in the background of the shoe, I can easily do it. So that again, my background and the foreground will have I'll have that option. I'll have that more control to whatever I want to do in the background. It just gives me like more option, and it gives me like more choice what I can do with my project. Let me go ahead with this, and then with this scene as well, like I opened up the shoe, and then again I rendered out with alpha channel so that I can create all those effects in the back. Like I can create all that in After Effects, and I can easily move the shoe around, and then did a little bit of transition right here. And then when I was let me show you my renders right here. So when I'm rendering those out, like you'll see like all my renders, if it's like shot 3 or shot 4, let me do the shot 5. So it will all be like with alpha channel, so that I can bring it into After Effects easily, and like I can play around with the text and doing all the other graphics. And then for like this thing as well, for this one, what I did was, like I only did one thing, like I only did it once in Cinema 4D, this one circle of these shoes, and then what I did was I brought it into After Effects and then created a 3D layer and then brought it into like in the front so that I don't have to render all these out and in Cinema 4D. So I just saved up my time in Cinema for the render, and then I just brought them all into like After Effects and added like in the 3D. So in the Z-axis, it was like in the background, and then brought this up in the front and played around with depth of field. Let me open up that shot as well so that I can show you what I'm talking about. It's the shot 5, and it's actually shot 6. So if I open this up right here, so this is only one, I did it only one time, and then I brought it into After Effects, and then this, I did it straight with Clone and did the animation to it, and then just brought it into After Effects. What I did was render it out in higher quality so that when I'm zooming in, the quality doesn't go bad, you know. Something simple, but it can create like a cool effect to your complete commercial. Okay guys, so I do want to share some few more tips that I really wish I knew it before when I started with Cinema 4D. So I really do want to share those for all the beginners out there, and even probably some of the other people don't know about it as well. I really do wish that I knew these before like when I started with cinema. So let me start with this tip. Okay, imagine I have this figure right here, and like I'm like so satisfied with this position right here, and I'm in love with this like where my camera is right now, where I'm looking at, and then accidentally like I move my camera right here. So now I'm like, oh, let me like undo it. Let me like undo it, but I can't really undo it because what's gonna undo is like the last action I did, but it's not actually gonna undo where I was before. So I can't do anything. Like I lost the position that I was absolutely in love with, you know. So to do that, to go back to it, when I found out about this, I was like, whoa, why didn't I knew about this before? So to go back to the position where you were before, just go back to view right here and click undo view, and boom, it brings you back to the position where you were before. The shortcut to this thing is Control Shift Z. So when I got to know about this, I was like, oh my God, I really do wish I knew about this, because there has been so many times before that I was absolutely in love with where my camera was and I accidentally like didn't lock my camera and I moved it. So another way to avoid this thing is like by having the camera, of course, and then you're looking through the camera and then you right click it, go to the rigging tags, and let me right click, and then you go here, rigging tags, and then you click protection. So now you won't be able to move your camera at all. And so to move the camera, you just have to go out of it, and then now you can move it. But there we go. So I find this really helpful, and I'm pretty sure that some people out there who don't know about this would find it really helpful. Another tip that I found really helpful was, let me click this. Let me delete this, and let me delete this figure too. Like if you have any model, okay, let me choose this since it's like a little bit complicated one. Okay, also another tip, like you're like, oh, where's my model, and you're like stuck. So you just hit your model and then click H to it, and it's gonna bring back to this, like it's gonna frame it where your model is right now. You just have to click H. Another tip is that if you have this, and then you wanna like make it editable, so you just have to, instead of going here, clicking this, you just have to click C. It's gonna make your model editable, and then select all the faces of your model, Control A, or just select all of them, and then you wanna, in fact, first, like, yeah, if you want to make it, like, you want to subdivide it, so what you're doing is, like, you hit Alt and then hit subdivide. So now your model is, like, turned into a ball. It's not in the shape of platonic anymore. So to avoid that, what you can do is, let me just hit Control Z. And yeah, you select all the faces of your model, and then you click U. You click U, and then when you hit U, hit Shift S. So now there's option of subdivide pops up, and usually I do it like 2 because that's what I would want. So when you hit click 2 and you hit OK, boom. So now instead of like subdividing and then it doesn't look platonic anymore, you can do it this way. So now you have enough segments that you wanted with your complicated model, and then it's not even losing its shape. So I find this pretty helpful. I was like, okay, like instead of me going like doing the subdivision, this is pretty useful, pretty helpful. Another tip that I do want to share is something simple, really simple, that you're like right here, and then again I said about the H thing, so you click H and then it brings you back to the frame, and when you like hit the middle button, and right now, well, they're like all you can see them, but in the frame, but if they're like this and they're like zoomed in or something, so instead of like zooming out or something, like you hover over this top view, and then you click H right here, you click H right here, you click H right here, and then they all brings it back to the frame. Something very simple. It's like it saves up your time. And I really do wish I knew about these shortcuts as well before. Another thing that I did mention earlier also was about the lighting tool. That is super helpful. I have this right here, and then you click this, and like you bring your light here, and then you go back to it, and then you click why do I keep making lights, and then you bring the lighting tool right here, and then you hover over your model, and then you like you're moving it around, and then exactly where you want the light, it will show up. I absolutely in love with this tool. I use it all the time for everything. Like if I want the light right here, it's gonna come right here. Super helpful. It gives the contrast and the depth that I do want it to look. And then you click another, you bring in another light, and then you do the same thing. You select the light first, and then you're like moving around, and then wherever you want it to be, like you can bring it. Super handy, super helpful. So yeah, guys, that will be it for today. I hope you learned some new tips that you didn't know before. But if you guys have any questions, please go ahead on my Instagram. My Instagram name is Mahnoor_Barry. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys.